On the quiet green planet Luray, dawn came with silver light. 2 moons faded behind rows of crystal trees, and glassy birds began to sing. Vele loved that sound. She sat on the stone step in front of the lonely glass-domed house and listened. With closed eyes, Vele was 12 cycles old. Zarian years that was still young, yet most of her people no longer used her name. They called her Broken One. Vele could not join the mind stream, the gentle river of thoughts every Zarian shared from birth. Something inside her brain blocked the telepathic song. The council declared her useless and sent her to live alone. In an exile dome far from the bright cities, the exile dome was once a scientific outpost. Now weeds pushed between floor tiles, and dusty screens blinked faintly in forgotten corners. Food arrived once a week in silent supply pods. Machines placed the packages through a slot and departed without a word. Nights were cold, lit only by aurora strips that hummed like lonely bees. Vele counted the hours by watching colored sand drip through a cracked timer, dreaming that one day someone might visit and speak her name aloud. Many days were the same. She rose with dawn, painted pictures on thin crystal sheets, and spoke aloud just to feel her voice. Talking hurt her throat, but warmed her heart. This morning, while she painted a sunrise across the eastern ridge, a soft mechanical chime echoed. The outer airlock door had opened. Service drones never rang the bell. Vele froze. She crept to the glass corridor and peered outside. A tall figure in a white pressure suit stood beneath the dome arch. The helmet was round and bright and on. The chest plate she saw a blue flag with a small white planet Turth. A human had come. Humans were new allies in the spiral of stars. Vele had watched old news files about them. They used spoken words for everything and could not touch the mind stream at all. They built metal ships, laughed loudly, and loved music. To Vele, they seemed like legends. The visitor lifted both hands in greeting and waited. Slowly, Vele pressed a button. The inner door hissed open. Cold morning air drifted inside. "Hello," the stranger said in a careful voice. "My name is Ethan Reyes. I hope I am not frightening you," Vele swallowed. She had not spoken to. A living soul in 2 seasons. "You are human?" she whispered. "Yes," Ethan answered, removing his helmet. Brown hair fell across curious dark eyes, looked young but carried a scientist's scanner on one arm. "I am part of an interworld research team. Old records mention this settlement. I wanted to be sure someone was here." Vele's heart pounded. "Someone is here," she said. "I am Vele." Ethan gave a small bow. "It is an honor. May I stay a moment?" "I brought fresh fruit from the capital." The sweet smell drifted from his pack. Hesitation wrestled with hunger and loneliness. Finally, Vele nodded. They sat on a stone bench near a crystal pond. Ethan set out bright orange samara fruit, scanned them for safety, then offered one. Vele bit carefully. Juice like sunshine filled her mouth. Ethan watched her with respect, not pity. "Do you feel the Zarian mind stream way out here?" asked Vele, shook her head. "I was born outside it. Healers tried many cures. Nothing changed, so they sent me away." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Different is not broken," he said softly. Vele looked at the pond's still water. "Different. Feels lonely." Ethan opened his tablet and showed a painting of Earth's night sky made by human artists who were blind. "On my world, we once feared difference too, and we learned people who see the world in new ways move us forward." Vele stared at the colors. "I paint," she said. "Will you show me?" Ethan asked. She led him to her small studio. Crystal sheets leaned against the wall, covered with swirling light shapes. Ethan lifted one. "These look like star maps," he murmured. "Star maps," Vele repeated. He ran his scanner over the painting. "The lines match ancient navigation charts in the archives," he whispered. "Where did you learn them?" "They come in dreams," Vele said. "I see rivers of light between worlds. Paint them so I don't forget." Ethan's hand trembled. "Dreams can be doors, Vele. Maybe your mind is tuned to something larger than ordinary telepathy." She hugged her arms. The council said, "My mind is broken." Perhaps it is open, Ethan replied. Silence filled the room, but it was a shared silence, not an empty one. The morning sun struck the dome, scattering rainbow shards across the floor. Ethan rose. I must return to the city before night. May I visit again tomorrow? A flutter of hope rose in Valet's chest. Yes, he smiled, eyes crinkling. Then we will map your dream stars together. Placed a small woven bracelet on the bench. This is from Earth. We give it to friends. Valet picked up the bracelet, soft and warm. No one had ever called her friend. Ethan sealed his helmet and stepped toward the airlock. Before the door shut, he lifted one hand in farewell. Valet raised her own. She watched the airlock close, then looked at the bracelet glowing in a sunbeam. For the first time since exile, the word future felt real. Outside, Ethan glanced back through the transparent wall. He saw the small figure holding the bracelet, bathed in silver light. Humanity never leaves anyone behind, he whispered. Above them, the twin moons drifted apart, opening a path across the brightening sky. Something had begun on Luray, sparked by a single shared hello. The next morning, Valet woke before sunrise. Her heart beat fast with something she hadn't felt in a long time: excitement. She brushed her silver-blue hair gently, picked out her cleanest robe, and placed the earth bracelet on her wrist. It was a small thing, but it made her feel seen. Ethan had said he would return. Part of her didn't believe it. Many had made promises before: healers, teachers, even council members. None kept their word, but just after first light, she heard it again, the soft chime of the airlock bell. She ran to the glass corridor and saw the same white suit, the same helmet, and this time, a smile already waiting on the man's face. I hope I'm not too early, Ethan said, stepping inside and removing his helmet. Valet shook her head quickly. No, I was waiting. He smiled and lifted a small box from his pack. He brought something new. It's a music player. She tilted her head. Music. Ethan nodded. It's sound made with feeling. Humans use it when we can't find the right words. He tapped the small device, and a soft melody began to play. Notes floated in the air like wind on water, gentle, curious, warm. Valet's eyes widened. It's beautiful, she whispered. They sat on the bench by the crystal pond again. The music played quietly while Valet showed Ethan more of her paintings, some finished, some just sketched out. Ethan pointed to one that had long swirling lines connecting dots. This is like a wormhole pattern. And this one, it matches a nebula. Near the Earth colonies, Valet blinked. But I have never left this place. Then how do you know these shapes? She looked down. They come to me in dreams. I close my eyes, and I see light dancing across the stars. Ethan leaned back, thoughtful. Your mind may work in a different way, Valet, but that doesn't make it less. Maybe it makes it more. She stared at him. No one ever said that to me before. He shrugged. Sometimes it takes someone from far away to see what others ignore. Later, Ethan showed her how to use the music player. Played her songs with drums, soft pianos, and even voices singing in strange earth languages. Valet laughed at one cheerful tune and clapped along, her smile wide and bright. Like that one, Ethan chuckled. It sounds like the wind trying to dance, she replied. When the sun reached its highest point, Ethan stood. I have to return to the research base now, but I'll come again tomorrow. Would you like that? Valet nodded quickly. Yes, very much. He paused, then added, Would you like some books too? Stories from Earth. Her eyes sparkled. Yes, please. Ethan smiled. Then I'll bring a library for my friend. He placed a second bracelet on the bench, this one woven in red and white threads, a new color for a new day. Valet watched him walk away. The airlock closed, but her heart stayed open. Over the next few days, Ethan returned again and again. He brought books with colorful pictures and simple words. Valet learned about earth animals like elephants, whales, and bees. She laughed when she saw humans wore shoes just to walk on dirt. Ethan also brought tools, small tech devices she had never seen before. They used one to project her paintings onto the dome's inner ceiling like a star map. I feel like I'm inside my dream, she whispered one evening. You painted this sky, Ethan said, looking up. Now you live in it, Vele began. To open up more, she told Ethan how lonely the exile dome had been at first, how the silence had felt heavy, like fog on her heart. But now she said it feels lighter, like the silence is just space, waiting to be filled with meaning. One day she brought out a painting she had hidden for a long time. It showed a strange black object floating in space, surrounded by blue lights and broken stars. Ethan stared at it. This looks like a station, a real one. Vele hesitated. I don't know what it is, but I see it in my sleep. It's over and over. He scanned the painting with his tool, and a soft beep echoed. These markings. They match old. Records this might be a lost Zarian station. Lost? It vanished hundreds of years ago during the Shift War. The Zarians say it was just a myth. But I see it, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her with wonder. Maybe you're seeing something that others forgot. Maybe your brain connects in ways mine can't even understand. Vele didn't know what to say. Her people had always called her wrong. But this human was saying she might hold truth no one else remembered. That night, after Ethan left, Vele stood in the dome and looked up at the stars through the glass. She touched the bracelet on her wrist and closed her eyes. The lights in. Her mind danced again. This time, they didn't feel confusing. It felt like a path, a message, something waiting. Back at the research station, Ethan stared at the scan results. The star coordinates from Vele's painting pointed to an area of deep space far beyond known travel paths. He whispered to himself, if she's right, this changes everything. He looked out the window, toward the direction of the exile. Dome. Tomorrow, he thought, I'll ask her to help me find it. And in the stars above, the old station waited silent, forgotten. But not for long. The sun rose gently over the crystal hills of Luray, lighting up the exiled dome like a diamond. Inside, Vele sat with her paintings spread around her. Her fingers trembled, not with fear but with hope. Today, Ethan was taking her to the council. City not as a prisoner, not as a mistake, but as someone with knowledge. It missed. Ethan had spent the last few days preparing. He gathered the scanned data from Vele's paintings, matched it with ancient records from Zarian history, and created a report no one could ignore. The painting of the Black Station. Floating in space with blue lights sit was real. It was a forgotten part of Zarian history, erased after the Shift War. Vele had seen it in her dreams, without ever knowing what it was. This could mean her brain is tuned to frequencies we don't understand, Ethan said to himself. Or maybe it remembers something passed down in ways we can't explain. He believed one thing for sure: Vele was not broken. She was gifted, and the world needed to see it. The city of Luray shone with towers of silver and glass. Floating walkways crossed between buildings. Zarians moved gracefully, their long robes flowing and heads held high. They barely looked at Ethan and Vele as they entered. Some frowned when they saw her. Others simply turned away. Vele kept her head low, her fingers gripping the bracelet Ethan had given her. Just breathe, Ethan whispered. We speak truth. Let it shine brighter than their silence. Inside the great hall, the High Council sat in a wide half circle. Her eyes glowed softly with inner light, signs of full connection to the mind stream. Vele could not join their thoughts. Today, she would speak her own words. Human, the central elder said, voice calm but distant. You bring the exile to us, why? Ethan stepped forward. 'Cause she remembers what you have forgotten. He tapped a device, and a large screen lit up behind him. Images from Vele's paintings appeared: star maps, shapes of wormholes, the lost station. Then came the scan data, the signal from deep space, and the match with Zarian historical files. She saw these in dreams, Ethan said. She painted them before ever learning what they were. She is connected to something old, something buried. This is not damage. This is brilliance. The room was quiet. Then a councilwoman spoke. She is disconnected from the mind stream. That means her view of the world is unbalanced. Ethan shook his head. Maybe the mind stream limits what you see. Maybe her mind, free from it, sees more. A murmur moved through the chamber. Finally, one elder looked at Vele. Girl, do you speak? Vele looked up. Her voice trembled, but she spoke clearly. I dream of stars. I dream of lights that call my name. My people sent me away, but the stars never did. Another elder frowned. These are poetic words. We need proof. Ethan held up a small device. Then let her show you what no one else can. He turned to Vele. Will you try? She nodded and placed her hand on the device. It began projecting her most recent dream painting, one she had made just last night. This time, the station had a signal line coming from it, a message glowing in faint patterns. The council leaned forward. This signal, Ethan explained, matches a pulse I picked up on my research probe. It's still active. The station isn't just real, it's awake. The silence filled the hall. Then, one voice spoke. We cannot follow the voice of a broken one. Vele's fingers curled into fists. Her voice rose, not loud but strong. I am not broken. I am different. And in the silence you gave me, I found something you lost. The council looked stunned. Ethan stepped forward again. She has done more in her exile than many of your thinkers have done in decades. But the elder shook his head slowly. We appreciate the data, but the girl remains unsuitable. If you wish, we will place her in the Cultural Museum. A symbol of rare, misunderstood minds. Ethan froze. A museum exhibit? Da. Vele's face fell. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. She had hoped just once that they might see her. Ethan took a breath. No, she is not a statue. She is a scientist, a guide. If you cannot accept her, we will go find that station ourselves. The council sat in silence. Then the central elder spoke. You may leave. The council has heard enough. Outside the hall, the sky darkened with evening. Vele and Ethan walked in silence. She held the bracelet tightly, as if it was the only real thing left. I'm sorry, Ethan said. Vele shook her head. No, I'm not. He looked at her. They still don't understand, she said softly. But I do, and you do. She looked up at the stars. They pushed me away. But maybe that was the only way I could see the path clearly. Ethan smiled. Then let's follow it, you and me. No counsel needed. She nodded. Above them, the first stars began to shine, and far out in space, something stirred. A signal blinked. A Ghent, soft, steady, waiting. It had been alone for a long time, but not for much longer. The sky over Luray was clear and dark. Stars shone like tiny fires, lighting the path for those who dared to follow them. Vele stood beside Ethan, near a small space shuttle, her heart beating fast. She had never left the planet. The closest she had been to the stars were her dreams. But tonight that would change. You sure about this? Ethan asked gently. Vele nodded. The station in my dreams is real. I can feel it calling. They both wore light travel suits. Ethan had brought everything they needed: a small scanner, navigation tools, and a two-person shuttle prepared by his research team in secret. No one from the Zarian Council knew they were leaving. The hatch closed behind them. The shuttle lifted. Slowly, then shot into the sky with a soft hum. Vele looked out the window, watching the world below grow smaller. Luray's green forests and silver mountains disappeared into clouds, then only space. According to your drawings, Ethan said, checking the screen, the station should be at these coordinates. He tapped in the path from her most recent painting. The shuttle followed it smoothly, passing asteroid fields and drifting ice rings. Vele stared into the blackness. Gosh, it feels familiar, she whispered. Like ... Home I've never seen. After a few hours, a signal pinged on Ethan's scanner. There, he pointed. A structure ahead. Through the front window, a dark shape appeared, massive, floating silently among the stars. It looked exactly like Vele's painting, long arms reaching out, blue lights glowing along its sides, and a large circular chamber in the center. Ethan's mouth dropped open. You were right. Vele's eyes widened. It's waiting. The shuttle docked gently. The outer doors of the station responded as if expecting them. No password, no code. Just welcome inside. The lights flickered too. Life dust floated through the air. The walls were made of old Zarian metal. It's covered with symbols no one had used in centuries. It's still working, Ethan said. Vile stepped in carefully. Her feet made soft echoes on the metal floor. They walked through narrow halls until they reached a round control room. A glowing crystal sphere sat in the center, silent but bright. Vele approached it slowly. She placed her hand on the surface. The station came alive. Lights blinked on. Screens lit up with data in an ancient Zarian language. A voice spoke in calm. Musical tones, welcome, air of balance, access granted. Ethan stared in shock. It recognizes you. Valet looked down at her hand. How? The voice continued. Neural pattern accepted. Core memory sequence opening. A soft hum filled the room. Then holograms appeared. Images from the past, Saurian scientists working side by side with humans and other alien species. Children, with different minds building machines. Elder leaders celebrating diversity. This is old Zarian history, Ethan whispered. Before they erased it all, Valet watched with wide eyes. They weren't always afraid of difference. The voice spoke again. The balance was broken. Fear replaced wonder. Connection lost. Ethan walked around the room, checking screens. This station was part of a network. A place where different minds like yours worked together. The wars came, they shut it all down. But why? Valet asked. Maybe they thought shutting out difference would protect their world. She shook her head. It didn't protect me, he continued exploring. In a side room, they found a memory library. Rows of glowing stones stored knowledge from ancient thinkers. Vele touched one, and it activated, showing a vision of a Zarian. Child drawing shapes in the air shapes, just like Valet's paintings. They were like me, she whispered. And they were part of something important. Ethan smiled. You're not broken. You're a connection to what they lost. Later, they sat near a viewing window. Outside, the stars turned slowly. Ethan looked at her. This place was forgotten. But you remembered it. Vele looked up. In dreams, in colors, in silence. What no one else could see. She touched the bracelet on her wrist. Because I was left alone, I listened deeper. He nodded. And now, that voice brought us here. A soft beep interrupted their moment. The station's systems had started sending a signal. Public. Broadcast. What's it doing? Ethan asked. The voice answered. Awakening beacon protocol. Sharing truth. Cross space, the station was transmitting its data, the history, the images. No. The truth about how the Zarians once honored different minds. Valet's hands trembled. They'll see it. Yes, Ethan said. All of them. The council, the youth, the people who were told they weren't enough. On Luray, the message reached the capital within hours. In the great city square, screens lit up, showing the station. Images of Vele appeared, her paintings, her voice, her story. Zarian citizens paused. Some whispered, some cried. Young ones who had always felt like outsiders stared in wonder. Is that the broken one? Someone asked. No, said another. She's the one who remembered. Back on the station, Vele looked at Ethan. Do you think they'll understand now? Ethan smiled gently. Maybe not all, but many will. And more will follow. She nodded. Then I want to stay here. Just for a while, this place feels alive. Ethan looked around. We'll fix it. Clean it, fill it with people like you. Us, she corrected, smiling. And so they stayed. In a station once forgotten, it's now awakened by a girl who saw with different eyes. A girl the world had pushed aside. A girl the stars had always waited for. The station's signals spread across the galaxy like a wave of light. Every screen on Luray showed the same message. Truth returns. Balance begins. The people watched in silence. Images filled the air, holograms of ancient Zarians working with humans and others. Children who painted stars. Minds once called imperfect leading great ideas. And then they saw her, V, laid not broken, not forgotten, standing in the control room of a floating station, calm and clear. She was the first voice to speak from that place in over 100 years. The Zarian Council called for an emergency gathering. The high chamber was full. Elders, scholars, and citizens came. Some curious, some angry, some hopeful. Ethan and Valet stood at the front. The council had invited them after the station's signal reached every city. But the invitation was cold, polite, and without apology. Still, Valet accepted. She stood not just for herself, but for all who had ever been told they were less. As the room fell quiet, the lead elder raised his hand. "We have seen your broadcast. The station is real. The data cannot be ignored." Another elder leaned forward. "But why send this to the public? Why not come to us first?" Ethan stepped forward. "Steve, we did. You refused to listen." The room shifted. A few Zarians lowered their heads. Others stared at Valet. She spoke. Ethan continued. "With her mind, her art, and her dreams, she saw what your perfect minds could not." The lead elder looked at Valet. "You were exiled for safety, not hatred. Your difference was not suitable for unity." Valet stepped closer, voice steady. "You feared me because I could not join the mind stream. But the silence gave me something else, a vision. A path no one else saw." A screen behind her showed the station again, now glowing brighter, cleaner. Life had returned to it. She turned back to the crowd. "In my dreams I saw stars calling. In my exile I found purpose. And with the help of a human who listened, I remembered what your history forgot." A younger Zarian stood up in the crowd. "She is like me. I cannot stay long in the mind stream. It gives me headaches. I thought I was broken." Others began to rise. 2 young ones, old ones, those who had stayed silent for years. "I see patterns others don't," one boy said. "I draw them, but no one cared." "I hear sound in colors," said a girl. "My family hides it." The room filled with voices, quiet but firm. The council looked shaken. The lead elder raised his hand again. "Enough, this is disorder." Ethan spoke, calm but strong. "This is not disorder. This is truth." Valet took a deep breath. "You taught the people to fear what is different, but fear is not strength. Real strength is listening, learning, and growing together." One of the younger council members stood. "She is right. We must change. Our culture cannot survive by closing its heart." The lead elder looked around. His power was slipping. The room was no longer with him. Finally he spoke. "What do you ask of us?" Valet stepped forward. "Not a seat in your council, not a place in your museum. I ask for space where minds like mine can learn and create without fear." She looked at Ethan. He smiled and nodded. "I ask for support to rebuild the station," she continued, "as a center for open minds, for those left behind, for those still waiting." The chamber was silent. Then, one by one, the younger Zarians began to clap their hands together. A new sound. Into human gesture. But now it meant unity. Others joined in. Elders, citizens, visitors, even the council, slowly began to clap. Valet stood tall, her eyes shining. For the first time, her people heard her voice and believed it. That night, the stars over Luray seemed brighter. The exile dome stood empty now, its cold silence replaced by memories. Valet and Ethan returned to the station. Welcomed them with warm lights and soft sounds in the main hall. Builders and engineers had already begun to arrive, Sarians, humans, and others. Young ones brought art. Older ones brought old memories. A new community was forming. Not perfect, but real. "Do you think they'll keep supporting us?" Valet asked, as she watched a Zarian girl install a glowing light vine across a wall. Ethan nodded. "They've seen something they can't unsee. The truth. And once truth wakes up, it doesn't sleep again." She smiled. "I used to think silence was all I had. Now, I think, it was waiting for the right sound." Ethan handed her a small disc. "What's this?" she asked. "A song," he said. "One humans play when something new begins." They placed it in the old system. Music filled the air, soft, hopeful, filled with light. Valet closed her eyes. She could still hear the stars. But now, for the first time, she knew they were listening back. The stars outside the station drifted slowly, peaceful, and bright. The once lonely structure was now full of light, life, and hope, where dust and silence once ruled. Now voices echoed with laughter, footsteps, and quiet songs. The Unity Station, as it was now called, had become a place of learning, healing, and creation. Xarians, humans, and other species worked together to rebuild it. They brought tools, books, art supplies, and most of all open hearts. At the center of it all stood Vele, the girl once exiled and forgotten. She no longer lived in the shadows of fear. Now she guided others into the light. Vele walked through the wide corridors of the station, her eyes calm and shining. She wore a long silver-blue robe, with the Earth's bracelet still on her wrist. It reminded her of where this journey began. Children followed her down the hall, some humming, others asking questions. "Teacher Vele," one small Xarian boy asked, "how did you paint the stars before ever seeing them?" She smiled gently. "I listened to the quiet inside me. Sometimes silence tells us more than noise ever can." Another girl raised her hand. "My parents say I dream too much. Is that bad?" Vele shook her head. "Dreams are maps. We just need the courage to follow them." The children beamed, and she led them to the station's viewing room. Their wide windows showed the endless sky. Vele pointed to the stars. "Each one is waiting, not for the strongest or the loudest, but for anyone brave enough to reach out." In the control room, Ethan watched the screens. He was older now, but his smile hadn't changed. Reports came in daily from other planets. More stations were being discovered, some half-buried, some almost forgotten. People were beginning to remember. A message came through from Lure's new council, a mix of young leaders, artists, thinkers, and healers. Unity Station has inspired a new generation. We're creating our own centers for learning across Lure. Thank you, Vele and Ethan. Ethan leaned back and looked around. Old machines now hummed with fresh energy. Students, inventors, and artists filled the halls. He thought of the first day he found Vele. Quiet, alone, shunned by her world. Now she was leading it. That evening, Vele stood at the center of a large hall. Guests from different planets had gathered. Xarians with glowing eyes, humans with curious smiles, and other beings with feathers, shells, or silver skin all joined together in one place. Vele spoke in her clear voice. "There was a time when I thought I had nothing to give, but it wasn't because I was weak. It was because others couldn't see me, couldn't hear me." She paused and looked at the crowd, but one person did. A human who listened. He stayed, and together we remembered something everyone had forgotten, that the stars are not only for the perfect. She stepped aside as Ethan joined her on the stage. "The stars," Ethan said, "are for everyone." The crowd clapped, and cheered not loudly but with deep feeling. Some placed hands on hearts. Others touched their bracelets. It's a symbol of friendship from Earth that had now spread across species. Later that night, Vele sat alone by a window, as the stars stretched out like an ocean. She touched her bracelet and smiled. Ethan came to sit beside her. "Quiet night. I like quiet," she replied. "It reminds me of the beginning." He nodded. "You've come far, Vele, so have you." They sat in silence, but it was a warm, full silence. The kind that spoke louder than words. After a while, Vele turned to him. "Do you ever wonder if we were meant to find each other?" Ethan smiled. "I don't know. But I do know we chose to see each other, and that changed everything." She nodded slowly. "Yes, it did." A few days later, a new group arrived, children from Lure who had once been afraid to speak, to draw, to think differently. Now they came smiling, carrying small bags, eager to learn. One shy boy approached Vele and gave her a folded drawing. "I saw this in my dream," he whispered. Vele unfolded it. The picture showed a new kind of station, with trees growing inside, and people from many worlds holding hands. "It's beautiful," she said. "Maybe it's the future," he smiled, and for the first time, stood a little taller. Back on Lure, people spoke of Vele with honor. Not just as a girl who found an old station, but as someone who reminded the world that worth isn't measured by sameness. The Exile Dome was turned into a museum of hope, filled with Vele's paintings and recordings. Sign outside read, "Here." Silence gave birth to a new voice. Years passed. Unity Station grew larger. Bridges were built to connect new parts of it. A garden floated in one wing, filled with flowers from many planets. Songs played in the halls, created by minds once ignored. Vele continued to teach, to paint, and to guide others. She no longer dreamed of stars because now she lived among them. One quiet morning, Vele stood at the window alone again, older. Now, her silver blue hair long and soft, she looked at the sky, whispered something to herself, and smiled. The stars waited for us, and she turned, ready to welcome another child, another mind, another beginning, because she knew now, with all her heart, the stars are for everyone.